So, I know this is a really weird angle. It's really early in the morning, and I just wanted to make a pretty quick, rather impromptu video. My usual camera is like dead, and I'm using the DSLR, which I'm kind of trying to phase out because it's pretty old by now. But so using the DSLR with OBS leads to this really weird color scheme and weird aspect ratio. But anyway, so I just was wiping off some makeup from a different video I was doing earlier. But anyway, I just want to make a quick video about why things have been slow for me on this channel the past almost year now, basically. And forgive me if I'm looking away, like over here. When I'm looking this way, I'm looking at my computer screen just to make sure everything is still running. I know some people have been like, why don't you look straight at the camera? And I'm like, I feel like, do you want me to? I just, I don't know. Anyway, that's besides the point. Just want to say real quick why things have been slow. Um, things have been slow on this channel. I mean, for the past couple of years, I'll be honest. And a lot of it came down to just, I don't really, I'm like, at this point in my life, I can talk about it, but I figure what's even the point? A couple of years ago, my spouse lost his job, and it turned out because of substance abuse issues. So things were really slowed down for me because of the emotional aspect to that and trying to work through the, emotional pain that brought, So that was in 2022. In 2023, I, was still working through it, and I started to go out more, live more for myself, do things for myself. And, I met people that I thought were, friends, that I thought became friends of mine. I would go out to see them, and I cared about them a lot, and I thought they cared about me back. And I think, things just didn't turn out the way that I hoped they would. At the end of the day, I have nothing against those people, and I'm just moving on with my life. But when those people turned out to not really be the friends that I hoped they would have been, that was also heartbreaking too, because as someone that really had to come out of their shell a lot, it was very hard for me to break away from my spouse and seek my own friends. You know what I mean? And then there I was, and I thought I found my own group of friends separate from him, and it just kind of seemed like they all shunned me for reasons that I still don't know. And at this point in my life, I don't care because it doesn't matter anymore. Obviously, if anybody wanted to be in my life, they would have showed up, or they would have never left to begin with. And so, in August of last year, I came home from a couple of shows that I had been to in San Antonio and Corpus Christi. I don't want to say who. I just don't even want to get into any of that shit anymore, But after I came home from those shows, I'll never forget. I was in bed, and man, wow, I'm actually a little emotional about this. It was like I woke up one morning, and my husband turned around in bed, and I mean, of course, he's just very blunt like this. He had told me that he rolled over in bed and told me that he had been experiencing trouble urinating, and there was blood in his urine, to put it eloquently. And that scared me really bad. That really, really scared me. I mean, I have panic disorder, and so hearing about, him having blood in his urine already got me feeling numb in my toes. And, he's like, I'm sure it's nothing, da da da. But to get to the point, he went to the doctor. They did a sonogram, and I don't know why, but the local doctor he went to, our clinic, said that he had a kidney stone and some sort of mass in his bladder. And so we're like, oh shit. What do you mean mass? What is that? Obviously we already had an idea what might be happening, but so he had to get some more, not x-rays, but like MRIs and stuff like that. He had more scans done. And after about 2 more scans and going to a urologist, finally, when he went to the urologist, the urologist looked at the, I don't know what you call it. He looked at the scans in my husband's file and he said, I don't know why your doctor told, or the clinic, or whatever. I don't know why they originally said you had kidney stones, because there aren't any stones in your kidney. Like, there was nothing there in the scans. So, on the plus side, there was no kidney stones at all. That's great. On the downside, there was still that mass in or around his bladder area. So after, you know, some more not hospital, but appointments and stuff, it turned out that it was a tumor. Man, that's, I can't help but be emotional. It was scary. It was really scary. My husband somehow had a tumor. Look, I have to just straight up say it. It was in between. It was squished somewhere between like his prostate and I guess the bladder. It was like wedged right in there. It was relatively small. Thankfully, it was only one, but it was, I guess, just perfectly wedged in there in a way that it was starting to block off, I guess, his urinary tract or urethra, whatever. And so, we ended up having to schedule for him to get surgery, and that still took a couple of months because, things are always slow when you have to wait for shit to be approved with insurance. And, thankfully, I mean, the bleeding stopped rather, soon, early in the appointments, early in the appointments, his bleeding stopped, and we're kind of like, okay, so that's good, right? So he, we were scared, and so when the blood did stop coming through, that was at least a good sign, Um, Eventually, he had surgery on April 29th of this year, 2025. They, I'll just have to be honest. I don't know what tool they used exactly, but they, of course, had like the scope, the camera thing, and they had to insert it in his penis. And of course, the tool to extract the tumor, to remove it. And so they did that. Thankfully, it was all in one day, and he was able to go home the same day. But of course, there was still the healing process, and unfortunately, because they removed a tumor literally through his penis, he did end up, as he literally, oh man, as my husband literally put it after the surgery, I'm a Cannibal Corpse song. And I was like, my God. So thankfully that's healed, and they did take it to be biopsied, and so far, it's now been, almost 2 months, and they haven't, as far as I know, called back. Typically, though, with the way our insurance works, sometimes if it's nothing, the doctor doesn't call us. Like, okay, we'll tell you the results. And if the results are benign, sometimes they just don't call you. I don't know. But it looked good though. When he had, sorry, it's hard not to be, emotional about it because it was really scary. I was at a point where I was like, what the fuck? Literally, I was like, if this is really bad, I might end up literally becoming a single mom. I mean, my husband's only 34, but, cancer can come at any age. And it was scary, Thankfully, when the doctor extracted the tumor, it just seemed to be a one freak occurrence, so to speak. It just seemed to randomly appear. And tumors and weird growths do seem to happen on his side of the family. His mom has had tumors and removed. His mom, his grandfather, his cousin, like they're like kind of lumpy people or something. But even still, um, it was scary because we didn't know what could happen. And, at the end of the day, I told my husband, I just want you to be able to watch our son grow up, you know? Despite all the shit he's put me through, all the shit my husband's done and we didn't get along and didn't agree with, I still wanted him to grow up. I wanted him to see our son grow up, And thankfully, when he had the tumor removed, the doctor didn't see anything else in there. And in fact, he was actually more perplexed. In fact, more like the doctor was actually more worried over the fact that my husband had the tumor to begin with because he's so young. He literally told my mother-in-law, who was there to pick up my husband from, the surgery. My mother-in-law told me that the doctor distinctly said, it doesn't look like it's malignant, but it's worrisome that a 34-year-old would have that. The doctor said it was very weird for a 34-year-old to have a tumor in that area. Something that I think they said was not typically seen until, a man is in his late 50s or something, So, yeah, I feel kind of like I'm rambling, but that's just that's in a way the gist of it. Granted, there's not truly many more details to say about that, but that's the main reason why things have been slow on this channel. It just came down to my husband had, gone sick, I guess you would say. He had a tumor. And, there was a lot of emotional worry that we went through because we're thinking, if this was as bad as it could have been, we were preparing for the worst, and, it's scary. It's scary to go through that early, and that's something I just keep thinking in the back of my mind, how the doctor said it was so weird for a 34-year-old to have a tumor like that, but at the same time, too, shit happens, right? Shit happens. But I don't guarantee, like 5 videos a week. I've never been that type of person. But, I'm hoping to pick up the pace soon. I think, truthfully, once summer break is over, you'll see probably a lot more regular videos from me. And that's obviously because, it's summer, so my son is home from school. So half the time I can't even record anyway because he's yelling and running around the house. But that's what I've been going through. And, if anything, if anybody else has ever gone through the same thing, truly let me know. I'm curious what your guys' stories might be. Even if you're way different in age, it doesn't matter because any sort of tumor or surgery, is scary. It's scary. It's scary, especially when you have a child that's under 18. It's a very scary thing to go through. And thinking about, my biggest thought, my biggest fear was that if this was really, really bad. And I say that because typically what happens to my husband typically ends up being cancer. Typically. In fact, it's more of a freak occurrence that thankfully it wasn't, or it seems like it wasn't. And so, I was scared though, that in case it was, I was afraid, would my son have any memories of his father? Because sometimes, some people don't remember when they're, relatively young. Some people don't remember anything up until like they're 7 or something like that, So, but thankfully things seem to be going a lot better now, and I appreciate everybody who still watches and who stayed and all that stuff. Everybody that comments, even the dislikes, I don't blame you if you dislike a video. I don't know why y'all watch these videos, tell you the truth. But, you'll be hearing from me soon. I have so much stuff that is basically on a backlog. In the meantime, I have a lot of random stuff recorded that I just need to edit. You'll be hearing from me soon. Thank you for watching me, and if you are watching this but you're not subscribed, can you please subscribe? I don't know why you would watch this and not be subscribed. But anyway, I'll see you later.